Our last area that we're going to complete in our agenda is using action filters. These are action methods that have specific roles and tasks. A controller manages the interactions between a view and the model. A collection of action methods also defines how the controller does its work. And this helps keep it focused on that particular task. Often we do need to do other tasks outside the main mission of that. So we could actually decorate and add code to any particular action method to perform something else. But yeah, it's pretty messy and complex, so action filters are always a better way to do this in MVC4. Here's some types of action filters, the first of which are authorization filters. These implement the iAuthorization filter, and these execute early in the pipeline. The next one is action and result filters, which these implement the iAction filter, and also these provide pre and post processing. The third type that we're looking at is exception filters. These implement the iException filter, and these also respond to exceptions that may occur in the particular method action. So now we're going to look at some MVC action filters that are built in. Several of these are out of the box directly from MVC, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. These also derive directly or indirectly from the filter attribute. Here are some of the built-in action filters that are worth pointing out. First ones are async timeout and no async timeout. Then we have authorize, child action only, handle error in case it has an error, which you can actually be specific on this, saying if it's a 404 error, if it's a 500, if it is a null reference exception, whatever. That's what you can do with handle error. Output cache if you're trying to override or enhance the caching of the site. Really good stuff. Require HTTPS. Validate anti-forgery token. Again, that helps secure the site by forms actually having an anti-forgery token contained within it. You can request on the other side to try to alleviate denial of service attacks of somebody trying to brute force a form for you. And one of the last ones, validate input, obviously validating what was inputted in a text box. All of these you can apply the action to a controller method, and you can apply this with multiple filters for any particular action. And you can stack them any which way you want. There's no specific order that needs to take place. And this is referred to as decorating the actions within the controller. So now what we're going to look at is the authorize action filter. This guy restricts access to an action method or an entire controller. If there are no arguments passed to it, then a user just must be authenticated with the system. You can also specify roles or users that can actually access that particular method. If a user is not authenticated, or within the list of roles or users that is given privilege to that particular action, the server will return a 401 unauthorized status code. It's pretty neat because that's just one line that you just sprinkled on top of an action, and it does that for you out of the box. Also, if you're using forms authentication, this will redirect to the login view. Within MVC, like other web apps, you do have the choice of securing some of your web pages from people that don't have access to them, or if they're not in the particular type of role that is required to view that particular page. On MVC, you actually have action filters like authorize that will ask for authentication to a page, or you can specify a role to say you have to be part of this group to access this page as well. So one of the most simplistic things that we're going to look at is the authorize action filter within our web application. So here we are in our dog controller, and what we want to do is we want to just go ahead and run it once without debug, so we can get to our pages here. So right now there's no authorization required to view this site. So I can click on details and get to those details of that particular dog. So what we want to do now is say, okay, to get to details, you need to actually be logged in to the site. So what I'm going to do is go back into our dog app controller here. And I do have things commented out that we'll go throughout this exercise. Right now, what we want to do is secure our details page. So here's our action result, and here is our action filter of authorized. We just want to uncomment. Go ahead and hit save. And because this is .NET code, Control F5, which will build and reopen this up. And we can go back to dogs. Now if I click on details, it should prompt me for authorization. So here we got prompted to log into the site. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with the login I already have. Okay, sure. And now I have access to the actual details page. So here, just with a simple sprinkling of the authorized action filter on top of an action result, I am able to specify that you need to be logged in order to do this. So let's say we want to specify just for a particular user. In this case, I'm just going to say admin1 because that's the user I want to use. So here we're saying authorize only the user admin1. So again, I should be able to get the same result that I just did by doing that. Other ways of doing authorization, you can actually authorize roles themselves. So let's see here. So here we can say only admins can create a particular group. So let's go ahead and hit save. And actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and rebuild because it's our .NET code. And I'm going to close our other page. Make sure that we're signed out here. Okay, we are signed out. And let's go ahead and go into dogs and we'll try create. And here again, it has the authorized filter, so it's at least prompting us to log in. Now, if I log in with another account that is not part of the admin's role, I will actually get redirected with an error saying I can't log into that page. So here I'm just going to go ahead and sign in as our admin, which is part of the admins group, and should allow us to the create page here. Try again. Actually, it looks like the admin is not part of the admin group. So what we can do is we can change this up just a little bit. We'll just go ahead and use the other type of authorization where we're just saying the admin1 user has access to that page. Same idea, just not using roles in this particular case, because as you saw that I kept getting redirected back to the login page for that create page. So here we're logged in as admin1, or we're going to at least. Log in. And here we are on the create page with some styling that's a little bit off here. So that has been an example of using the action filter that you can sprinkle on action results within MVC. The handle action filter is one of the handier types of filters you can add to any action. This is the primary way to protect it from unhandled exceptions. This will help you avoid the dreaded yellow screen of death, or YSOD. This can also redirect you to a custom error page. One thing to note is that you must use the handle error filter and activate custom errors from the web config. Here are some properties of the handle error action filter. First is the exception type. Next we have master, order, and then finally view. Another action filter that is pretty common to use within your MVC application is the handle error action filter. The handle error action filter tells an action result on what to do when an error actually occurs within there. So if we scroll down in our dog application within our dog controller, I've got a few that are commented out here. So by default, handle error will toss an error to the screen that you're currently on, basically saying that there's an error. It's very simplistic, and we can see what that looks like here. So let's go ahead and run it and see what we get. So go into the dog section and click on throw an error. So there it is, error. An error has occurred while processing your request. Okay. Go ahead and close that. Go ahead and close these other windows while we're at it. Okay. So here, that is very pretty generic. Doesn't really help us out in terms of describing what the error actually is. So what we're going to do is comment that out and uncomment the line right above it. So here we're saying handle error, but this time we want you to use the general error view that we're specifying right here. And that view is over here. Oops. It is right here. It's in our dog, and all that is just basically a general error. We'll say something bad happened, and it will pass the controller name, the action name, and the exception that is coming across from our handle error action filter. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that, and got that ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and run it. Okay, let's click on dogs, and then we'll click on throw an error again. So now it actually, because we're in debug, actually by that and told us that we had an error happen. And so now this is actually using the handle error action filter, but we're specifying a general error view that is showing up here now. And there is the name of our controller. There's the action method that got executed, and here is the exception that actually happened. So we go ahead and close that, stop our debugging. As you can see, I do have two other examples of commented out code in the order that they happen. You can specify which order to handle the error and what types of exceptions in that case. So here we're being explicit, saying if it's a type of divide by zero exception, then use the view divide by zero. Otherwise, use just a normal exception, and then it'll handle the error that way. So this has been an example of how to use the handle error action filter. The output cache action filter actually has a robust support within ASP.NET for output caching. We control the cache by the duration, characters of the request, and any data changes. This can cache full pages, partial pages, individual objects, and this is even more granular in MVC4 of what you can do. MVC hooks into those caching features fairly easily. The output cache action filter actually has properties that hook into ASP.NET caching features, and this is also other than by just by control. Another common action filter to use is the output cache filter. This allows an action result to be fully cached so that browsing experience is sped up to an end user that is viewing the same information over and over again, allowing it not to make round trips to the server to retrieve the same information. So here we are in the dog controller in our dog app application, and we have two action results, catch this and get time. But for now, we're going to leave the output cache commented out so we can see what this does without the cache. So let's go ahead and run our application. Go into our dogs and click on our link view cache page. So here we have a timestamp of 1:24 p.m. And if I keep refreshing the page, you notice it keeps changing with the seconds. So this is not being cached currently. So let's go ahead and close our page. And we are going to uncomment both of our output cache. Go ahead and hit save. And we'll go back into running our project. And we'll click on dogs. And then we'll click on view cache page again. So now it's at 1:25. If I hit refresh, you notice that's not changing. Although I did set a duration on this to 10. So let's see how long that actually takes, which is 10 seconds. So I hit refresh after the 10 seconds. So no matter if I hit it exactly 10 or if I hit it 30 minutes later, whenever I hit refresh page, then it gets a brand new timestamp in this particular case. So there, and went again, gave me a new timestamp. So let's go back one page to our cache time so we can view the same thing. So here we have the current time as it was, and this is also the current time when I access this page for the first time. So if I hit refresh up here, the current time will change, but yet the cache time below will not change except after 10 seconds. So there we have our different times. So this has been a simple example of how to use output cached with the duration. There is another way. If you use within your web config, if you put in a cache profile, you can actually use a profile that you can define your duration and your vary by param from your web config to use throughout your web application. So you can just call that profile name and not have to explicitly define the duration and the vary by param every time you use it. The require HTTPS action filter requires access only if you're using SSL and HTTPS protocol. So that means that if this is true, it will actually check to see if the current web address is using SSL, and if it's not, this will actually throw an error. But what this also does is that it helps encrypt the data between the browser and the server. This requires an installed digital certificate just like you would for any other normal website. And also this is cheap insurance to help secure your web application in certain areas. Again, the request over HTTP redirects to the same URL with HTTPS. So if you're currently http://www.go.com, this will actually redirect you to HTTPS version of go.com. And there are no other properties than just the order within require HTTPS. The last of the filters we're going to talk about is global filters. Global filters were first introduced in MVC 3. These apply filters across all controllers in applications. Also, these are from the system.web.mvc.globalfilters class, which are public within the global filter collection property, and these are also built in with custom filters. You register these in the global ASEX, or if you're using a bundle config within there. What MVC4 brings to the table now is the new allow anonymous attribute. This allows for the best practice of security of your MVC4 web application. So what this means is that you want to go sprinkle this attribute above any action method that is returning to the screen or has an action. So everything that is public domain that doesn't require a user to be authenticated, you want to put allow anonymous on there. Otherwise, you could have authorize with or without parameters. If you have parameters with authorize, you can define roles, specific users, so forth. What allow anonymous does is that tells the action result, for instance, that this is a publicly available method within the controller that will return a view that will just make your site more secure by doing this and having the flip of that using the authorize attribute. This will allow you to, as I just said, secure the entire web app, and then you can whitelist the anonymous pages with this attribute. So what we mean by that is that you should go through and basically lock down your entire site by using the authorize attribute within your controllers, and then turn around and you can sprinkle the allow anonymous, like for instance like a login page, because that needs to obviously allow anonymous until somebody logs in.